Welcome every single person who has taken the time out to join us on a very special episode of The Legacy Lounge entitled JV's Testimony. Thank you so very much. And if y'all don't know this voice, it's Cap Rivera of VersaVision Live by way of The Legacy Lounge. So JV, thank you so very much for agreeing to put your testimony out there. I know we have spoken about it numerous times, and it's literally getting the timing together as your schedule has been busy, my schedule has been busy, and it had to take this long because there were so many things that people didn't see happening behind the scenes. And even if the viewers could see like the crazy weather that's going on right now, I just also feels like that's confirmation of the atmosphere stirring up, that this testimony is going to stir up the spirit within people and activate, the God in them that they didn't know existed, that will help them get through some stuff. Your testimony, although I've heard bits and pieces of it, I can't wait to hear the entirety of it. And just thank you for allowing me to be the one to interview you on this. I want to first ask you to just do a little introduction for people who may not know who you are.
For one, it's your boy JV, singer-songwriter from New Jersey. I'm also a host on VersaVision Live, being managed by SSP Blueprint, Taj Rivera, aka Cap, and I'm from Big Jersey, putting that work in, and I'm here to put this testimony out because we know that testimonies are not just for us to keep to ourselves, but to put them out there so others may be able to know that there is hope, and that's where we at. We're walking it out, we're striving. You hear me?
And I know that this testimony is going to be so very powerful, and you'll continuously hear me say that throughout this whole process because I'm speaking life into you and it at the same time, because it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, to talk about the not so great aspects of the things you've been through. But just in knowing you for the time that I have, I did see a little bit of who you were, and I'm so very glad I met you at this point so that I could see how God has increased in your life, to see that you've come a mighty long way. And even how in the back of my mind, I looked up to you and still do in a lot of ways because of how you walk and how you would always just be so approachable and, personable. And you would always tell people, look, I'm a work in progress. I'm not perfect. I got a story. And I know even for myself, I began to say, well, what is this story that he keeps talking about? And then, as we got to know each other and the team, and I was like, wow, he is the real deal. He is not lying, because you can do his Carfax if you would. So we're going to get straight into it. And you all who are listening in real time or the playback, once again, thank you in advance. Do not forget to subscribe and share it out. I'm telling you, it's going to be monumental. And he has agreed that nothing is off limits. Okay, so I have curated this interview / testimony for you. And we've already prayed and we've already set the atmosphere. So we're going to first get into family and generational cycles. Now, you've heard me say to you, and you agree, that you are the person who is meant to break generational curses. And that's never going to be an easy task because you have lifelines on your back. You have to be the one that steps up in the gap of people who don't know any better or want to do and don't know how. Like, you've been through a lot to be able to show them the way. So tell me about your family that you were born into and the addictions and the incarcerations you witnessed growing up, and why you believe you found yourself walking down some of those same paths, even after seeing firsthand what it did to the people you loved.
Sir, so first, real quick, I just want to piggyback off of what you said. We in the land of the living, so it's imperative that we speak in life into life. So when I say that, it's we're speaking life into each other, encouraging each other, speaking life into the atmosphere, commanding our day, all of that, and taking the next best step forward. And with that, whatever we got going on, that compound effect is a real thing, towards bringing that vision, that plan, that goal into fruition. You know what I'm saying? But to answer your question, you know, some people may look at this, and you know, it can also be family, but this is not that. You know what I mean? I'm not coming from that place. You know, for one, everybody is not willing to put their testimony, and everybody is not willing to speak on everything. You know, but I am. You know, because you know, like I said, even being able to speak on these things are breaking generational curses. You know what I'm saying? But you know, I don't want to be coming off as what's the word I'm looking for? Cocky, or like I'm better than anybody. No, I'm not. You know what I mean? I've been at the lowest of the low. You know what I mean? I've been in rooms with the highest of the highest of people, or claim to be the highest of the highest people. You know what I mean? But who am I? You know, only God knows that. So, you know, when it comes to me saying that I'm the one that was sent here to break these generational curses, you know, I only say these type of things because, you know, God will literally drop things in your spirit out of nowhere and then confirm them. You know, God is so real. You know what I mean? You know, there was times where I was going through, and even now, you know, times that I go through things and wonder where these things coming from, or times where I think things and wonder where these thoughts are coming from. And then I tend to go and ask questions, whether it be from my mother, from my father, brother, sister, grandparents, you know what I mean, about certain things. And these questions get confirmed or answered. And these thoughts that are downloaded straight from God are confirmed. And yeah, you know, I guess maybe God knows that at this point that I'm at now, you know, I'm willing to put the work in to break these generational curses and do what is necessary. And you know, just something that I understand now is that God will let you, I ain't gonna say he drags you through the dirt, no, but God will let you go through the worst of the worst, go through the mud, the dirt, the valley, shadows of death, all of that, in front of the people that you love the most, in front of the people that you want to do the most for, in front of the people that you thought you wanted to impress the most. He will let you go through these things in front of those people, you know what I mean, to have them looking crazy at you, just to pull you up out of that pit. You know, in the Bible it says something about from the pit to the palace. Don't quote me on the scripture. I believe it was Joseph though. From the pit to the palace. You know, he will let you go through some crazy situations in front of the people that you love to get pulled up out of that situation, because he knows and he trusts that once you get up out of that thing, you're going to have an understanding why, when, and how you came through that thing. And I give all glory to my Father God in heaven for making this all possible, and you know, just working this all out in a perfect way. There's always work to do. No, let me take that back. Not I am. God is perfecting a thing all the way to the end. You know what I mean? Until he calls me home. You know, so I'm not gonna say I'm a work in progress. No, God is perfecting a thing, and with God perfecting a thing, that comes with me taking steps, even the uncomfortable steps. You know what I mean? So, you know, here we are, and we about to get down and dirty with this testimony.
And that is a fact. So you were correct. It was Joseph when he was, you know, thrown into the pit, and then later ended up in the palace and being able to help his family out. But again, speaking of family, we did speak about that. I want you to get into deeper when we talk about addiction and incarceration. And after seeing firsthand what that did to the people that you loved, why would you and how could you find yourself taking some of those same steps?
Okay, so for one, even to this day, you know, I've always grown up to honor my parents, honor my elders, or respect my elders. And even to this day, you know, I honor both of my parents. I honor my elders, my grandparents, all of that. And in the Bible, it says that the young will teach the old, and don't quote me again, the young will teach the old, or something like that, you know. And sometimes we are the ones that can teach our parents things, or let our parents see different things or show our parents different things, whether that be spiritually, mentally, or physically in this world. And what I realized about myself looking back on a lot of things that my mom and my father went through. And I know that everybody struggles and everybody has a testimony, but like I said, everybody's not willing to speak on these things, but I am. And you know, some of the things that my parents struggled with on both sides of my family was addictions. And I feel like, you know, me being the oldest of 5, I was the main one out of all of my siblings to literally see my parents go through all of these things and still go back and put myself through all of these things. Every single thing that I seen my parents go through. Addiction, prison, failed relationships, bondage, curses. And when I say curses, that's on a deeper realm. You know, and these are things that I understand that have to be prayed off of our bloodlines and off of our generations and off of our future generations. So while I'm on camera right now, Satan, you know what I mean, it ends with me. You know what I mean? That does not mean that I'm perfect, but God knows what's up. You know what I mean? My Father God in heaven, in the mighty name of Jesus, got me, but it ends with me, Satan. You know what I mean? Our future generations are going to be great, and I commend that today. So if you don't mind, can you break down the question again? Because you know sometimes I get a little bit off topic.
Of course. We were talking about family and generational cycles. So you did answer, you know, what I was asking, that you were born into a family that you saw addiction and incarceration. You witnessed that growing up, and how you still ended up doing that stuff when you saw the effects of how it hindered, you know, family. So you actually did. But in hindsight, did you feel like, you know, that was something you had to do, or were you using it as escapism from everything that was going on around you?
So at the time where it all started, I had no understanding, but I'm able to look back now and understand why I did what I did. So it all started, obviously, I think with a lot of people, it starts with smoking marijuana. And a lot of us don't feel like marijuana is a gateway drug, but, you know, I'm able to look back now and see that it is. And the reason why it is because if you're able to put your hand out and pick up marijuana or pick up a joint, just something simple as that, you're willing to put your hand, or now I ain't gonna say willing, but you're capable of putting your hand out and picking something else up, you know what I mean, and bringing it into yourself, if you understand what I'm saying. And I'm not speaking to the interview, I'm just saying if y'all understand what I'm saying. So yeah, it started with me doing something simple as smoking weed every day as a teenager. And you know, it was cool to do, you know, with my friends, this and that. But as I got older, and, you know, just being outside, going to parties and things like that, it honestly opened me up to other things like ecstasy pills. That was the next thing that I had got into. And the ecstasy pills was all good and all of that for a time. But one thing about the ecstasy pills is that they filled you with a whole bunch of lust. And that alone led me into a whole another realm of things and opened me up physically, spiritually, and mentally for other things. And I'm not saying that everybody goes through the same thing, but for me, I guess my mind, body, and soul was too sensitive at the time, you know, and it opened me up to way too much. And, you know, by the grace of God, I was able to be freed of that. So, yeah, I was taking ecstasy pills, outside catching cases, robbing people, gunpoint, getting locked up. But, you know, one thing through all of this, through all of my ups and my downs, I've always claimed to believe in God, or claimed to know God, or claimed to know Jesus, but where I'm at now, I claim to, or I don't claim to be a believer. I'm a knower in the power, in the name of Jesus, in the power of God, really, and how he will shift the atmosphere, and go ahead of you. And I try my best to walk in my authority, but that does not mean that every day I wake up with motivation. Sometimes you got to jumpstart it, and you hear me say that. And the way you jumpstart this is just by taking the first step. So yeah, the ecstasy pills opened me up to a whole nother world of things, just being outside, doing a whole bunch of things that I should not have been into. So yeah, it started with the ecstasy pills. Then I had got an addiction to opiates.
For people who might not know what an opiate is, what is that exactly?
Like Percocets, Oxys, 30s, blues, all that type of stuff.
Because that was the question I was getting into next about your drug of choice. And yes, a lot of people don't want to admit that marijuana is a gateway drug, especially with it being legal now, and people using that for coping mechanisms, for numbing themselves because they don't want to feel. And were you a drinker at all?
Yeah, but I wasn't the type of drinker that was able to just go out and have a good time. I was the type of drinker that I would drink to black out, or drink to do something that I didn't want to remember, or also drink to go to sleep after having a crazy night off of doing too many drugs. I know a lot of people won't understand that, but there's some people that may understand.
A lot of people will understand more than you would think. Yeah. Because here's the thing, JV. We're both millennials, and even the way we grew up differently, but still, we had the dare in school. We saw the commercials talking about, this is your brain on drugs, and we laughed about it and all of that, but we didn't have as much access as people do now. So we can't even speak from a point of they don't know. They know. It's in the video games, it's in the TV, it's in the music. It's being glorified more than ever before. So, these kids are way smarter than we were at their age, just because they're exposed to more. And a lot of them deal with things differently because everything is on the internet. Back in the day, I joke, I said we had slam books. You don't like somebody, you write it down, you give it to your friend. That's it. There was no internet. But now you say something, it's out there forever because it never goes away. So even in the midst of all that, and you starting so young, you said teenager, 13, 14, could be 15, but either way, that's when your frontal lobe is developing. And if you're inebriated, and they call alcohol spirits, you don't get to choose what comes into your life, because doors become open. And a whole lot of stuff came in, apparently, that you can see clearly now. And peer pressure, of course, played a big role in it, and those who you surrounded yourself with. Because when you are in the midst of things, nobody is going to want you to stop having fun. They're going to keep pumping it to you. Because probably at the young age you started, you didn't have a job. So it's like, where did this stuff come from? The devil provided it. So even at your young age, he was trying to stunt the man that you are today. And I'm glad that he didn't win. And that's why we're here now. So even in the midst of that season in your life, and you're looking back at it now, do you believe, because I do, that God was speaking to you even before you truly knew him?
Oh yeah, 100%. And at the times, no, I didn't understand how God speaks. God will speak to you in any way that you can. You just never know. I'm able to look back now, and one of the ways that God was speaking to me was by sending me to prison. But that's me jumping ahead a little bit. But definitely that was one of the ways that God was speaking to me. And I say that because if I was just able to be on the streets continuing to do what I was doing and not giving my body a rest, I wouldn't have been here today. So God knew what he was doing with letting me feel like I needed a drug at a time, and going out and robbing somebody and ending up in prison. That was all part of God's plans to get me into prison so I can heal my mind, my body, and my soul. And literally, I know y'all hear it a lot, but when I went to prison was like actually the first time that I experienced God's presence for myself. And you know, I've always claimed to know God. I grew up in church, but I've never had that type of experience that people speak of, feeling his presence and things like that. So you know, this time that I went to prison, it was at a dark time in my life. I'm not gonna say the darkest, not at that moment, but it was at a dark time in my life. And I was coming up I wasn't at the moment yet, but I was coming up on the point of coming to the end of myself.
So let's get into more of the incarceration. You know, a lot of people have been through things in their life. A lot of people don't even get caught doing things. Now, in the midst of the things you were doing, what were these things though? What were you doing exactly?
When you say what thing, what do you mean exactly?
What things did you do that were illegal, that you enjoyed doing that got you caught up?
Sold drugs, burglaries, robberies, guns, and these are all things that I've, been arrested for. And all of them all stemmed from my addiction, or me trying to get my next fix in whatever addiction I had going on. Even something as simple as smoking marijuana. That was the first time that I've got arrested. When I was younger, I had just graduated high school, and me and a couple of my friends had robbed a few people for some money and jewelry, and first thing we did was went to go to buy some weed, and that was just the beginning of it all. Up and downs, up and downs, up and downs. But I'm able to look back now and see that it was all necessary for me to have the understanding that I have today, and the wisdom that I have today. There's always more to learn, but I do try to move, walk, and talk with discretion, and ask God for guidance in everything that I do. And I'm not perfect, but God knows I'm willing, so we're here.
Yeah, peer pressure and just the need to try to impress people, and we often do it in different ways. So you found yourself, literally and figuratively getting a high off of doing things to get the high. And then you surround yourself with the people who do the same things. There'll never be a motivation to change. Even with getting caught that first time. What did the first time getting caught, how did that feel though? That wasn't a scared straight moment for you, because then there were many other times.
No, the first time getting caught wasn't a scared straight moment. It was, I got arrested with a few of my friends, came home, and it was just like a clout thing growing up. I got locked up for this. The worst part was going back and forth to court and not knowing exactly what was going on with my case. But at that time in life, I didn't really have too much to lose other than my freedom, doing the things I wanted to do, not being able to be around my mother, my brother, my family, and that type of thing. So it was nowhere near as heavy as it felt when I caught cases later on in my life, So at that point, it was just mainly about clout and just looking cool out here. So
we do a lot of things for that same satisfaction. And when you get older, that's when you realize that same thing and validation you were searching for was all in God. but we didn't think that void could be filled with him only. We wanted to fill it with stuff that was tangible to us, because we don't have the wherewithal or knowledge or understanding to know that we have to only find that type of fulfillment in Christ. So yes, you did go down that path to be where you are now. And again, I didn't know you then. I know you now. And only bits and pieces of then. And even I see the transformation, and it's so endearing. And it just, from the moment I was really getting to know you and be like, he really has been through some stuff. And it made me almost have a restoration myself in God, and just how he moves in the power, because sometimes your flame can go out and you need to be filled up, because you are on empty. And a lot of the times the things that you were saying, how you were moving, and just this light that radiates off of you, and it gave me so much. And you do that for a lot of people who may not say that to you, but you definitely do admit that. And I want you to know that your story does make sense. Your pains, your struggles, they are there to help free other people. Now, in that, with the group of people, growing up, and I know we've spoken about, even the music and other things that you do, you say that the people you really want to reach out to are those same people, like 14, 15 and up. What people nowadays call the YNs. We don't have to say what that means, but for folks, though, they know. Yeah. But a young group of men who are teenage age and early 20s, who are very wayward and lost, because this generation is beat. They are not who we were growing up, because they're exposed to more things. I have to keep saying that because it's true. The cell phones are at younger ages. They're not reading books. They're in the iPads. Most people don't even live in great neighborhoods. They can't go out and play. They can't socialize. So they're stuck in front of the TV. The parents are working multiple jobs. So they are raising themselves, their latchkey. So sometimes that hope is zapped right out of them when you don't even have after-school programs for them to go to. And I haven't seen a Dare commercial in a while. I don't even know if it still exists. Yes, so great. Even with those things, you end up being the big brother. You end up being the uncle. You end up being the mentor. And I love that for you. So even with that, do you believe that even your come to Jesus moment is the reason why your heart is so heavy for that group of individuals?
Yeah, but I'm gonna say this, yes, even though, what we see out here is what we call the YNs, getting into a lot of things earlier on in life than we did. But something that I'm also realizing that I didn't realize, or maybe I didn't have the eyes to see, is that also that a lot of younger people are coming to Christ at an earlier age too. And this is something real that I am seeing. So, for the YNs that are out there, maybe doing the wrong things or into the wrong things, it's not ever too early. And for the older people, it's not ever too late, and I'm speaking from experience. So, just know that.
So, with all that was going on with you at your very young age, you also did another thing at your young age. You became a father. So, you became a father at a young age, and even as your children grow older and become more aware of your past, because I don't know how much of it that they know, what do you hope they learn from your story? And how would you guide them if they ever found themselves facing the same choices you made?
I want my babies to know the power through Christ, the power in the name of Jesus, and how he will transform your life. So, if I can tell the younger people, my babies around me, through anything that you're going through, whether it be a test in school, whether it be an assembly that you got to get on stage and read an essay for, pray about it. Pray about it, and it could even be in your head. Just ask God to go ahead of you. Say the name of Jesus, and even through your nerves and your anxiety, your depression, just watch how he will make it turn out better than you expect. So that's definitely something that I want my babies to know, that God is real, You know, my biggest fear is my children not knowing God, you know, because out here trying to depend on a man or woman, it's only gonna lead to being disappointed. So, you know, definitely, you know, that's definitely what I want my children to know, you know, that God is real, and let me be a living testimony of that. You know, I be as transparent as I can with my children. I don't hold anything back. You know, my oldest children, they have seen me go through some crazy things, you know what I mean? And to look back to where I was at and to where I'm at and to where I'm going, you know, they got no choice to know that God is real, because they know how big I am on God, you know what I mean? And this is not about going to church. This is about walking it out and being an actual walking, living example of keeping God at the forefront, you know, praying over everything, and you know, just striving, being consistent, and all of that. So definitely let me be a living testimony, not just only for my babies, you know what I mean? Shout out to my babies, but, you know, for all of those that may need actual proof with your eyes that God is real, you know what I mean? You know, we all have our own personal signs that God gives us. And if you haven't recognized what your own personal sign is from God, you know what I mean, let me be that. And, you know, just continue to watch me walking it out. I already know that God is going ahead of me and everything I got going on, and we here, you know. But we about to get down and dirty to this testimony, you know what I mean, to let y'all know, you know what I mean, some times where I really understood that God was with me, you know, down to the second, down to the minute, down to the hour. I said it backwards, but down to the hour, to the minute, to the second. You know what I mean? Really, God was really there.
So, before we move on to exactly where we were going, which is your rock bottom moment, I got to segue back around to, you know, you said that your oldest saw you not in the best way and now see you now. Are they fully aware of the magnitude? You say you don't hold nothing back, but are they fully aware of the magnitude of everything that you've been through?
I believe my oldest are aware, just not fully aware of totally understanding the power in Christ and why I am the way that I am and why I stand on the things that I stand on. Now they are aware of the real trials that life will throw at you, you know, through the addiction, through the drinking, through the prison, through the bad relationships, through the failed homes, through the anxiety, just everything. And when I say anxiety, something that I've noticed about myself, and I'm still getting stronger in this. Pardon me, I'm checking this lightning out here. But something that I've noticed about myself is, and even noticing other people now that I've gotten stronger in it, is that you can walk into a room, and I can walk into a room now and kind of see and feel what people are dealing with, or which people are dealing with the same type of things mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally that I've dealt with. Now, one of those things are like social anxiety. I hate to put these terms on it, because I feel like when you walk around and say, "Oh, I have depression, I have this and that," you're claiming it on yourself. So, you know what I mean? Don't claim it. You can feel that way, but don't claim it. Don't say you have this or that. You know what I mean? We're not claiming it. But I do feel like I can walk into a room and see which people have these type of things, because people will be like just straight looking down in their phones all the time instead of socializing. And that is like a coping mechanism. Back in the day, people didn't have phones and things like that. You had to socialize and get to know people and get to feel people's spirits out. You know what I mean? And, you know, those type of things alone can decrease or hinder your spiritual growth. You know, so this is just something that I noticed, and I was definitely that way for a long time, and I still might be that way in some moments. But you know, when I realize what I'm doing, you know, I'll break out of that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and yeah.
I think that what people fail to realize is anything that we give time to more than we give to God becomes an idol. And unfortunately, when people get judged in the end, their phone is going to testify against them. Because even though it is a coping mechanism, had they would have dug deeper and really gave all that to God, then there wouldn't be that idol in the way. And I feel like if more people call things what they are. So, you know, we've agreed to disagree on claiming things and coming to a realization, because I will say this, that I understand when you say that when it comes to claiming things, but I will also say that if you don't admit that something exists, then you can't get free from it. We talk about deliverance a lot, and when a person goes through deliverance, you have to denounce things. So if you say, well, nothing going on, I don't claim it, honey, it don't mean it's not there. It just means you have to say what it is to be free from it. But I understand what you mean.
Yes, you have to pray. You have to pray these things off of you, because another thing is that these type of things can also be generational, like the depression and the mental health situations. All of that can all be generational. So you do have to get to a point to where you're able to even pray over yourself, pray for those around you, and understand that you have to break these chains off of you. You know, and I'm speaking from experience, really. Man, my brain was literally less than paper thin, on the line of being reprobate, if that's the term. Mm-hmm. My brain was literally paper thin, on the edge of going crazy. I literally felt myself, for a few years straight, I felt myself like flickering back and forth in that crazy world, and being sane, really. And I thank the Lord, you know what I mean, that He you know, sustained me and deemed me worthy to have a sound mind. You know what I mean? Literally, man, there was times, if I can speak, can I?
Well, yeah, because we're actually going right into your rock bottom, and that's where I want you to go, because you said before you came to the end of yourself, and that was your rock bottom, and what led you there, and what made you cry out to God instead of handling everything on your own. So please expound on that. All
right, so there was a point where my addiction was getting really bad with Percocets. And you know, it just had me outside doing a whole bunch of things that I shouldn't be doing. Robbing houses, breaking into cars, burglaries, robbing people, and things like that. And I thought it was all cool. I thought it was cool to walk around with guns, all of this. So one day, I had went to the beach with a few friends, and we were there overnight, or not overnight, but late night, where the beach it closed at a certain time. And I didn't understand this. I didn't even know that the beach was federal property. So we were on the beach drinking and smoking, and it's probably like 1:30 in the morning, Sandy Hook Beach to be exact, in New Jersey. And the park rangers had rolled on the sand and seen us out there. We had a big bottle of liquor, had our sheets spread out, we had a fire going, everything. It was a nice vibe. I was out there cooking, had took some ecstasy, all of that. I had my gun in the car. So the cops had came up to us and made us walk to the car. And I felt like the cops knew what they was doing. So I was with a bunch of females, and they separated me from the females. And the reason they did that was because they were trying to ask the females for permission to go through the car. They had no reason to do this other than us drinking, which is legally, I guess, gave them rights to do it. But they separated us and asked the females if it was okay for them to search the car. Because if they knew if I was right there with them, I would have told them, nah, y'all don't gotta give them consent to search nothing. So they split us up, put me in the back of the car seat, and had all of the girls sitting outside of their car, and they were searching the car, searching the trunk, and I'm in the back seat of the car in handcuffs already for no reason. They put me in it, well, not for no reason, but for being drunk on the beach and having the liquor. You know, I cleaned the liquor. You know, it was mine, so they put me in a cop car in handcuffs. A few minutes later, my gun is in the trunk of this car, tucked in the corner of the trunk. A few minutes later, I see the cop going through the trunk, and he walks over to the car. My heart pounding like, oh man. The cop opens the back door and dangles my gun in my face. I'm like, oh man. My heart dropped in my stomach right there. And this was the second serious case that I ever caught. The first case was just like a robbery, armed robbery type of thing, you know, fighting, beating people up. And then it then progressed to actually carrying guns and things like that. Cop dangled the gun in my face. They locked me up. I was in the state, $100,000 bail. A few weeks later, the state dropped the case, let me home. They let me home, and 2 weeks after they let me home, the FBI came and kicked in my door. And I was I wasn't home at the time, but the FBI came and kicked in my door. I was on the run for about 30 days. My family felt it was best for us all to just come up with a plan to where, you know, I linked up with all my family, you know, said my goodbyes. I literally felt like it was the end of my life. I thought I was going away to prison for a bunch of years. And, you know, this was like one of the first times where I started to like open my eyes to like, what the heck? Like, how things are working out like this, man? But, you know, God worked it out all perfectly. But anyway, the FBI kicked in the door. I was on the run for 30 days. Me and my family, we came with a plan to turn myself in. So we went to Trenton, New Jersey. It was about 15 of us. We traveled down to Trenton, New Jersey. And I turned myself in. I gave my hugs to everybody. He was crying, all of that. And tell me why. We get to the federal building. The feds come up. They put me in handcuffs, take me down. It's like, it got to be like 10 stories underground where they took me to in Trenton, underneath the federal building. Crazy, scary experience. So I'm down there for about an hour, and they're telling me that you know, that they're gonna have to take me to a prison that has federal holding. And so I'm sitting down there waiting for them to figure that out. And then just lo and behold, they said that there was one federal judge that was still in the building that was willing to do my case. She was a 78-year-old at the time. I'm not sure how old she is now. 78-year-old black federal female judge. And at this same exact time in my life was the same exact time, rest in peace to the young man, was the same exact time that Trayvon Martin had got killed in this situation with the hoodie and the Skittles, if you remember that situation. But that same exact time, and I only know this because at this same time, you know, when I turned myself in to go to prison, the news companies were outside with their cameras recording me and all of this. Like, what the heck is going on? You know, but they were just recording everything. There was a protest going on for Trayvon Martin and all of that. But anyway, the only black federal judge, and she was willing to take my case. So she took my case, and this was after I done told everybody goodbye and all of that. You know, my family was still sitting there talking to everybody, talking to the prosecutors and everything, you know, just figuring out what would be the next step. So the black federal judge, Judge Thompson, she agreed to do a federally secured bond through the federal government, which was my parents signing some type of bond or something like that for, I don't know, it was like $200,000 or something like that, to let me come home on a federal ankle monitor. And let me backtrack. The reason why my gun charge turned federal was because Sandy Hook in New Jersey is a federally protected beach, and I had no idea or no clue of this. So anyway, yeah, they let me come home on federal house arrest, and we chose to fight the case like that. So me being at the age where I thought I knew so much, or where I thought it was cool, and listening to music, you know what I mean? They say that nobody can beat the feds, can beat the federal government in trial. I still took it upon myself, regardless of what my parents and my family was telling me, to just take the case, this and that. I'm like, nah, I'm taking this to trial, taking this joint to trial. And I took the case to trial and lost against the federal government. I went to trial against the federal government and lost. And, I thought they was going to smoke me. But, I'm able to look back now and know that God was even there with me in the courtroom, to be exact. In the courtroom, with bringing the people that were there, with the jury, with the prosecutor, with the lawyer, all the way up to the judge. Even with my family members that were in the room. It's just crazy. Yeah, God literally shifted that atmosphere for me. But what got me to the point to where I'm able to look back now was being on federal house arrest. It did something to me mentally, physically, and spiritually in a bad way at that time. But I'm able to look back now and know that it was all just part of the plan. Progress is a process, and it truly is. You know what I mean? It was all just progress. It was all just part of the process to make progress, and I say that to say that one of the reasons why my federal case had such a mental breakdown on me was because while I was on this federal ankle monitor, people would come to the house. I used to be outside a lot, but my boys would come to the house, my family members would come to the house on a day where everybody going out to a party, and then they would leave, and I would have to deal with those daggone emotions like I'm a puppy on a leash, or like I was a dog on a leash, and I would still have to sit with those emotions, and just watching everybody leave and go out and have a good time, and I'm just sitting in the house. So that just opened me up to trying to escape that mental, whatever it was doing to me mentally. It was like a mental battle of not wanting to be on house arrest and wanting to go out with my friends or my family. You know what I mean? So it just opened me up to even being willing to try different things, and this is where it got crazy at. Before I break this down, did you want to continue to guide the testimony with some questions?
Well, I'm so wrapped up in what you're saying. I'm just visualizing everything that's going on, because you're falling right in line with the things I was going to ask, because I know the angelic encounter is coming up next, and that's where I was going with this. So no, you're free to rob.
Yeah, so that part, that part is a little bit down the line. But first things first, when I got on house arrest was when K2 or Spice or Space had literally just came out on the market, and this was before it was illegal. This was when it was in store. We were just calling it legal weed. Today, weed is just legal. You can smoke weed in front of a cop, which is crazy to me. For all the people that have been arrested, just crazy. It's just crazy to me. But back then, Space, which was fake weed, had just became legal. The first time that I had smoked some of that, I literally felt it do something to my brain. It like opened my brain up in the wrong way, to like spiritually, to where my mind was just open to letting anything in my mind at the time. You know what I'm saying? And this is why, you know, I even got to the point to where my brain was literally paper thin. But yeah, the fake weed had did something to me spiritually, to where I literally started seeing into different dimensions. I literally did. And I remember this one experience while I was on house arrest. It was one of those times where, you know, I was still dealing with the battle of, you know, seeing people leave, and I still had to stay in the house on a Friday or a Saturday when they go into a party and all of that. But anyway, and I'm not mentioning no names or people. I don't even want y'all to try to guess who the people are. But I remember one time I'm at the house on house arrest, and these people, they were getting ready to go out. And I walk into the room, and I literally seen one of the people's eyes turn into like snake eyes. Reptilian. Whatever, if that's the term, that's the term that they say online, but whatever. I don't know. But I seen that, and the feeling that I had got over my body was like chills. And my aunt was at the house at the time with her kids. And this is what made it realer for me, was because my aunt must have felt what I felt, because, you know, I had stairs in my house. When I seen that, I had turned around. It was like, ugh, like that feeling, like when you're running through like a dark room, that dark room, and something like right behind you. I had that feeling on me, and I dang near floated down the steps. That's how shook it had me. I did that, and I ran into the basement of my house, and my aunt must have noticed that I just experienced something, because she made the kids like get up against the wall. I don't know if her spirit jumped or something, or she felt something in her spirit that something wasn't right. Well, I knew it. I just seen it with my eyes, and I didn't explain that to her or nothing. But that's an experience that I won't ever forget. You know what I'm saying? So with me seeing that, it just opened me up to getting on a computer and started searching different stuff and looking into different stuff, and things being confirmed. I never knew nothing like that before. I never knew nothing about this type of stuff until I seen it with my eyes, and then started going on a computer and seeing that this was a real thing that people claim to see. I'm getting a little chills thinking about it right now a little bit. And seeing that this was actual real thing, and people putting a term on what this is, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of scary to me. So, you know, that led to me getting on the computer and going down crazy rabbit holes, but also throughout all of this, going through the crazy rabbit holes, looking into all of this different stuff, it also led me into listening to different people, you know, prophesy, and people minister, but in the right way. You know what I mean? So I was listening. It was basically like that one foot in, 1 foot out type of thing, but not knowing. But I was at the not knowing. But, you know, people die for lack of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I was literally at that point of 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You know what I mean? I was basically serving two masters, because I had my ear open for a whole bunch of the wrong stuff, and had my ear open to Jesus also. You know what I mean? And also too, the Mormons started coming to my house through this same, like in this same situation while I was on federal house arrest. The Mormons started coming to my house, and I actually started letting them in my house and sitting down, and regardless of what role they play, the Mormons, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, you know what I mean? But the one thing that I gained from them was I started picking up my Bible. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, you know, what they believe in, I believe in. No, I know Jesus Christ. I know the power in the name of Jesus. You know what I mean? I can't say what they believe in or what they you know, all that type of stuff. But they did lead me to start picking up my Bible. So that was the one good thing that I got from them. And they gave me a friend in when I was lonely too. Literally, I'll be home by myself, needed somebody to talk to, and the Mormons came knocking on my door. You know what I mean? And they would come roughly, I don't know, 2 times a week. You know, I don't know, something like that. But they were somebody to talk to and express myself to. And, you know, just keep in mind, you know, like I said, this is the point where I was just open to a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, it was just crazy. So something else that I just got to mention, because, you know, like I said, that I was just open to a whole bunch of things. And these are the type of things that let me know that the spiritual world is real. But, you know, we don't know what we fight up against, or what we're up against. You know, a lot of things may seem cool to us and cool to a lot of people, but once your eyes are open and realize what you're connecting to, and the demonic spirits that are connected to certain things, you know, we went and dibble and dabble in certain stuff like that. You know what I mean? So right before I had got put on house arrest, this is just crazy. While I was on the run from the feds, like literally right before I got put on house arrest, I don't know, I was walking around with like this weird feeling in my spirit, like my body was like real like hot. I don't know, it was something that I couldn't get rid of. My body was just like real hot. And everybody around me knew that I was going to turn myself in. I don't know if it had something to do with the stress or just what I was dealing with at that time. The stress, the being depressed, all of that at that time, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that I was claiming any of that, but I'm telling you what it was at that point. But my body was just like real hot. It wasn't something that I could explain to anybody. It wasn't even something that I was trying to explain. I was just trying to numb it through drinking, through drugs, and all of that. You know what I mean? I was at a scared point in my life. I thought this was like the lowest point of my life, but nah, it even got lower after that. You know what I'm saying? You know, I was doing so much drinking and doing drugs. You know, we ended up at these people's house, and not knowing what these girls were into, while we were there, the girl had pulled out one of those boards. I hate to even use the word, man, because, you know, I rebuke that. Well, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, they had pulled one of those things out, and we were actually doing one of those things. And well, Father God, let me say this. I'm just going to mention it. Father God, just, you know, bridle my tongue, and let the words that I'm saying just go forward as a message. You know what I mean? And just let people receive it in the correct way. You know what I'm saying? So the girl, or the girls, they were into like Ouija boards. And we had did a Ouija board. And the first time we did it, I don't know what the question was that the girl had asked or whatever, but her house had a front door and a back door. It was apartments, and both sides had doorbells on it. So when we first did it, the back door bell had ring and the front door bell had ring, both at the same exact time. Ding, ding. Both at the same time. We go to the door, nobody's there. So if that's not crazy enough for you, then this next one right here, something you see in a movie. So we had did it again, and she had like a little like a statue or something sitting on her fireplace in the apartment. And when we had did it, the little thing had moved off of the edge of the fireplace and fell off. And that joint had gave me like crazy chills in my body. I'm like, what the heck, yo? Never ever experienced nothing like that in my life. And this was before me seeing the person's eyes turn into what I seen it turn into. Remember, this is right before I got put on house arrest. a few weeks after I got put on house arrest was when I experienced a situation where I seen a person's eyes turn into cat eyes. So this just shows you, like, I was just open to a whole bunch of just crazy stuff. I was seeing into different dimensions. I'm not even joking. I was literally seeing into different realms. So yeah, I was on federal house arrest for all of this time, going down crazy rabbit holes and just open to a whole bunch of different stuff. And it had a crazy effect on my mind, on my body, and on my soul. And I could have been gone, but God deemed me worthy, deemed me fit, and He know that these are all things that I needed to go through to have an understanding, to have a knowledge, and to be able to explain these things, these demonic things, and how these even are binds and curses and spells and wizardry and voodoo and hoodoo and all of that stuff that we trample on nowadays in the mighty name of Jesus. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, that was just a crazy point in my life, man, and it had such an impact mentally, physically, spiritually on me, and even up to the point to where I had did my I think it was about 40 something months that I did on federal house arrest. It killed my ability to be social. Like, I'm spitting in it. It killed my ability to be social. It killed my ability to just be outside and hang out on the block. I don't know. It took all of that away. Like, I wasn't like I felt like I skipped the point of my life to where where everybody was hanging out with their boys, bonding with their boys after high school. I missed that point of like really being outside and getting close to my boys and going to grown-up bars and parties in that way. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I never did it, but at that point in my life, if I was able to do those type of things, I probably would have been outside bugging. And who knows what would have happened, me being the way that I was back then. And yeah, I'm just so thankful, for everything, even the trials and the tribulations. You know what I mean? So, before I get to this next part, did you want to ask another question?
Well, you have definitely, as I like to say sometimes, lived many lives. And even what I'm gathering from your mind being open, a lot of people who dibble and dabble, they will say that that third eye became open, that pineal gland that was calcified is now open, and that's why you were able to see into the spirit realm. But what I feel is, because of your gifting and your calling, even though it didn't come the way that it might come for other people, God allowed that to be open in your life because of where He wanted to take you, so that you wouldn't be afraid of it if you dealt with it later in life, because you knew what it was. So even with the spirit board and that feeling, it lets you know that there's something beyond what we're doing now in the physical. There is a spiritual realm and ramifications for those things, because a lot of people think that stuff is not real. Oh, it's just a game, it's for kids, or Milton Bradley or whoever makes it, and they sell it very cheaply. And but not realizing it's really not you moving it. It is you coming into agreement with something that you don't get to pick what comes through the door when you open it. And I think what people fail to realize is, the hell that people go through, and the drama and the drought and the curses and everything. It ain't always generational. It's where you opened up the door to, right? But then going forward how to bind it, how to call it out, how to know what it is. Yes. So even though your mind did get opened, that's just the way that it had to happen for you because of what you were going through, that you were susceptible, because some people are rigid and never believe that these things exist. And a lot of people might say, well, God don't work in no mess. God gonna work how He work. And you don't get to dictate to Him how He's going to work. So He knew that you are, very, willing to try in and everything, but He knew that He had to reach you some type of way. So He said, you know what? I'm going to let you dip in it a little close. You wasn't a reprobate, you was a prodigal. that wasn't a reprobate just yet. Because if you were truly in a reprobated mind, honey, you wouldn't have a flicker or flame for him. So you might have been on the cusp, but you still realized who God was. So that makes you a prodigal who came back into the fold. So I understand that the assignment that you have over your life, you had to be a part of those spiritual things. Because if not, you'd be like some of these other people out here denying the power thereof. They just think that, the adversary don't have certain powers when he do. And they would deny it all and just be so blinded and think they don't have to go through nothing. You have to go through stuff to grow through stuff, as you say. That's your saying, but it is factual. So even though you didn't think you would realize the spiritual the way that you did, that's just the path that you went on to know that it was true for you. And when you are honestly in an altered state, your defenses are down. You're not thinking logically, but at the same time, you're able to then honestly see into those realms. So a lot of people do certain drugs and ayahuasca and other things to open it up because they want to feel that third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension. And it is very real, okay? But I think just from you saying that, professing that, because that's what happened to you, there is a prophetic calling. You are definitely empathic by way of being able to feel what's in the room with people and know, because of the spirit that once dwelled in you could still connect with that thing to know this person has depression, this person has anxiety, this person has this person has that. But all of that's going to be still used for the glory of God. So it probably wasn't the way that you would have thought it happened, but God don't make no mistakes. And he knew you could handle that. Even though you didn't fully know. And you were straddling the fence, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You were lukewarm, as they say. But thank God for Jesus that you didn't lose your mind all the way in it. What happened is it was fractured, but when you allow God to come in and build you back up, then you had a little to-go bag of this is what this is real. So, and that's where you are today. But please, keep expounding because you got a lot to talk about.
Yes.